And we have Cyan up here with us, who is the instigator of this whole thing. And I've been very fortunate to have her support us in putting this together. And we want to say thank you. And I think she might have a few words at the beginning.
Where people share ideas, even if they're uncomfortable, even if you don't agree with them. And so that people, our world is deeply divided right now. And I think this is how we heal, is to have conversations like the ones we're going to have over the next 2 days. So thank you.
I was born in New York City, but I grew up in Canada. I moved when I was 3 months old. I didn't want to have an accent. And I grew up there. And as I was telling someone, maybe at lunchtime, I moved back to the United States to go to graduate school at MIT, and I did not know I was an American. Actually, I was on a visa. And I wasn't, and it was not, until I got my first job at Harvard, I didn't know I was an American. I tried to get permanent residency status, and the Harvard lawyer said, "We think you're an American." and I said, "How do you find out?" They said, "Apply for a passport," and that's what I did, and found out I was an American. All those years of being anti-American when I grew up, I sort of still am. But empty space isn't empty. If you apply quantum mechanics and relativity together, it says that empty space is really a boiling, bubbling brew of virtual particles that pop in and out of existence in a timescale so short you can't see them. They're called virtual particles. This is actually a mathematical calculation, an actual accurate one, of what the space inside a proton would look like if you could see it, an elementary particle proton. It's full of these fields that are popping in and out of existence. And they're quantum fluctuations. And it turns out they're responsible for most of the mass of the proton, as it turns out. Okay, these virtual particles. But it means that empty space isn't empty. That if you get rid of all the particles and radiation, empty space is full of these virtual particles. Virtual because you can't see them. They come in and out of existence on a timescale so short that you cannot see them. The laws of physics, something called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, says you'd never be able to see these things. So there are no real particles there. There's nothing there, but a lot of stuff is happening. Okay? And that tells you that empty space is a little more complicated than you can imagine. Jeff, I want you to run towards that wall with your head and crash into it as fast as you can. Okay, we're not going to do that.
You want me to do it again?
Yeah, exactly. How is the job of an artist similar or different than the job of a scientist? And the answer in many ways is they're not. That's one of the reasons why I talk about science. That's one of the reasons my foundation has developed to explain the connections between science and culture. We spend a lot of time. That's why I have directors and artists and musicians as well as physicists and writers and everyone else on the podcast, because it's all different aspects of our culture. People say to me, what good is any of this? It's not going to make a faster car or a better toaster. But what amazes me is they never say what good is a Mozart symphony or what good is a Picasso painting. Okay? The answer is they all are the same. Because what they do is give us a different perspective of our place in the universe, of how we got here, a different view of ourselves. And that's what science is all about. At its fundamental level, sure, science produces technology. And maybe that's an unlucky thing because it makes people think that unless it produces technology, it's not good for anything. But the best parts of science are revealing to us ourselves and giving us a different perspective of ourselves. And that's why I think art and science are connected. And that's why among the things I do, I've been involved in movies and also music. Doesn't matter. I was nominated for a Grammy once, I'm happy to say. But it's all a different part of being human. And my favorite part of that, actually, when we talk about the utility of science and its technological utility, is the Fermi. Someone was telling me you were going to go to Chicago, but the Fermi accelerator wasn't working then. The first director of the Fermi National Laboratory, which was the biggest particle accelerator in the United States, when it was being built, he testified before Congress, and they asked if it would help in the defense of the nation. And his answer was no, but it'll help keep the nation worth defending. And to me, that's why art and music and literature and science are all worthwhile, because without it, it isn't worth being human.
It's an argument. But what I would say, maybe like Lawrence was saying the other night, some questions aren't the right question. Maybe the question isn't, do we have free will, but do we have the ability to learn? And I think this is the key to how we understand this dilemma, because if we're talking about the prior state plus the laws of physics determining what happens next, the capacity to learn adds to that prior state, which is going to bring into consideration what happens next. And if we think about the types of choices we would want to make, we would hope that the decisions that we're making are based off of our life experience, the things that we've learned, the things that we believe.